Hey everyone, thanks again for tuning into the Heaps Creative Podcast, the show where we uncover creative archetypes. I'm your host, Tyler Jackson Chappell. In this episode, I sat down to chat with Farrin Foster. Farrin's an editor, a writer, and an occasional filmmaker, and she's currently the founding editor of Splinter Literary Journal, and was previously the editor of independent masthead CityMag, as well as a few others, and we cover all of that in this broad-reaching, sprawling conversation. And normally I aim for about an hour, but this one ended up going an hour 45 because it was just so much fun and such an engaging and exciting conversation. Like, I was still, by the end of it, so gassed up and having so much fun. And Farrin has worked extensively as a journalist and a writer, and she's been published by titles like The Guardian, Meanjin, Kill Your Darlings, and The Big Issue. And not just in those more literary spaces, but you can find her work on Netflix even. Super broad-reaching, incredible writing career, and super, super interesting conversation. So I hope you enjoy. Farrin Foster, welcome to the Heaps Creative Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Before we start, I just want to congratulate you on, I'm actually undecided if it's the best or most infuriating website design of any guest that we've had, at least for getting your headshot.
Oh, with the bouncy head?
Yeah.
I think infuriating might make it the best. I don't know.
It's got the energy of that, when you're in high school and the teacher leaves the blank DVD screen and you follow around the...
Credit to that has to go to my husband, who is a graphic designer, Tyrone Ormsby, and he has done a series of Adelaide and Melbourne-based creative people's websites, and they all have an infuriating element. So
that's his brand.
Yeah, that's his thing. If you want an infuriating website, I can hook you up.
That is great. That's a very cool calling card to have.
Totally, yeah.
So how did you get into writing? And writing is a very broad, and we'll go into each little kind of subsection, but just writing in general, what drew you to it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, which I've asked a lot of people this type of question in my career, and I always expect them to have this tight narrative around why they do the thing that they're obviously passionate about doing. I don't really know is the answer. I was it's the thing I always preferred doing at school, and I was probably a reader more than a writer initially, which I think is a very important quality for a writer. You have to read voraciously in order to be any good at writing. And then I guess when I was looking at finishing school, all of my friends were going into law or medicine, and I couldn't think of anything less appealing. And I was well, I'd like to write. I guess I'll try and study something related to that. So I studied journalism. And I think I always wanted to do more creative writing, but I was scared for the first 10 or so years of my career.
So it wasn't that you needed to be on the front lines of breaking news?
I think for a little while I convinced myself that was what I wanted. I thought for a brief deluded period of time I would be a foreign correspondent. And apart from the fact that my mum's anxiety definitely couldn't have coped with that, journalism is also a really ethically compromised pursuit. I think it's a really important pursuit in a big, on a macro scale. We need people to investigate issues and to tell these stories, but there's an inherent ethical problem in that the people who you involve in the telling of that story are often sacrificed to the norms of the media. So if you're reporting on something like domestic violence or the Me Too movement, even lots of political things, there are individuals who you have to use as case studies, and their life often gets worse after those stories have been reported. And I didn't really they don't tell you that in journalism school. Or they do that. Oh, and, you know, different people have different levels for what they find acceptable, but I found that really challenging. So I think I thought for a while I wanted to be a frontline reporter, but I don't have the... I'm not able to focus on the greater good when there's a smaller harm being done, which sounds really virtuous, but I think it didn't play out that simply across my career.
It's a tough one. I think unis are doing a better job now.
Oh, that's
I just
good.
took a media ethics class.
Great.
And I should know the quote, the one from Journalist and the Murderer, is that?
Oh, I love that book.
Yeah. And the opening quote about any like self-aware journalist knows that what they're doing is like morally reprehensible.
Yes, yeah, totally. I do know the quote. I hadn't heard of that book until maybe 6 years ago. Like, there's no way they were introducing that to us in journalism school back when I studied. So I'm glad that they're talking about it now.
Yeah. Also, for anyone listening, Lenny, my dog, is hanging around, so if you hear dog sounds, that's like...
he's got like a toy that he's sort of like chewing on in my lap at the moment, which is a real delight.
Yeah. So yeah, any weird dog sounds, that's Lenny.
Yeah, that's not me.
And like, just touching on another one of your many like writing endeavors, film.
Yeah.
And what did you say, like, sometimes...
Yeah,
filmmaker?
yeah. I can't remember what bio I'm on at the moment.
Reluctant filmmaker?
Yeah, the bio used to be like journalist by training, writer by ambition, filmmaker by necessity, which is mostly because it was entirely accidental that I got into film. It was like I'd worked with a great film production company where I'd commissioned them to make a short documentary for CityMag. And then COVID came and I was like a full-time freelance writer at the start of COVID. And all my clients like disappeared. But the film company called me up one day and they were like, hey, can you come direct a short video? And I was like, I have no idea how to do that, but yeah, like I really need money. And then I ended up working with them for 4 or 5 years, and they did like documentaries were their primary thing, but we also did little commercial things as well. But it was really interesting. Documentary is such a very much the same as journalism or long-form non-fiction writing, but also very, very different. There's so many more barriers between you and the audience when you introduce film, the visual language, which I found frustrating, but also really interesting. There's a lot more barriers, but there's a lot more layers to the storytelling. You can tell kind of a visual strand of story and audio strand of story simultaneously and have them layer on top of each other, which is super interesting. But also you have to spend so much time like location scouting and dealing with crew schedules and all of those logistics, which is not as fun.
So like you just jumped straight into directing, because I saw some of your like writing credits as well, but like directing was the first.
Yeah, I mean they asked me to come and direct something and I was like, you guys know that I don't know what I'm doing. They were like, oh, it's mostly just an interview, and I was like, sure, I can interview people. And then I think, so there was like 2 guys who owned that film company, and we worked out between us eventually how we worked best together, and surprisingly, I ended up mostly writing. But yeah, it's also, I don't know, have you done any film work?
No.
It's very, I think particularly for documentary, you see credits on films and it looks like it would be very clear what every person is doing, but there's quite a lot of fluidity between like director, writer, producer roles. Right. Even cinematographer, there's like a lot of ideas moving around live and everybody responding to those ideas. So after having worked in film for like 5 years, I'm still not sure exactly what
you did
what person is doing what thing based on their job title.
Yeah, right.
And I think it changes depending on the team you're in.
Yeah. Because I watched Ballkids, which
thanks.
you were the writer for.
Yeah, thanks for
which
watching.
I cried during it.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah. When the girl wins, I don't want no spoilers for Ballkids.
I mean, yes, a girl does win.
Does win, yeah. But, like the best ball kid, and like immediately calls her dad. I thought that was so sweet.
Yeah.
But this is something like I'm really, like the idea of writing like a screenplay or writing something like even a documentary that's not happening, like it's already happened, makes, I guess, logical sense to me. How did you write something we didn't know what was going to happen?
Yeah, it's really interesting because you have to write all these versions of the story when you're pitching it. So we spent a lot of time pitching it to both like funding bodies, but also Tennis Australia, so that we could get access to hang out with these kids. And you have to do heaps of research and then outline a story that is plausible and has interesting story beats. Like how might we structure this, Ballkids is probably an easier one. The kids go on a very set journey. But yeah, it's such an odd thing to do, and people will come in and look at your pitch, and then we worked with like with the ABC for a little while on Ballkids. They were interested for a while, and they'll come in and they'll be like, well, why don't we change this like very small detail in the story? And you're like, sure, like it's all made up at this point anyway. But I guess that's a process of like getting to know what they're looking for as commissioning bodies. And then you go and film it and it's like completely different, But you're also kind of writing on the fly as you're filming. You're making decisions about who to follow, what to film. Lenny's really excited. I'm sorry. Lenny, it's okay.
Sorry.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah, Lenny break. Writing on the fly, different stories.
Yeah, so we, for Ballkids, which for people who haven't seen it, which I imagine is quite a lot of people, it follows this cohort of teenagers who go through a really rigorous recruitment process to then work on the courts at the Australian Open, and their journey kind of follows the journey of the tennis players competition, in that they desperately want to be on court for the finals, and they go through this like competitive process throughout the whole tournament to see who gets to be on court for the finals. We filmed like at various stages throughout their recruitment and training, and then in the tournament, I think we filmed for like 10 to 14 days. We had 2 crews. I was kind of like making the decisions for one crew, and the director was on the other crew. And the director would give us kind of ideas in the morning of what he was hoping to capture. And then it would be like 6 hours of going out and deciding like which court should we go to, which kid should we film, which person should we interview. And that's kind of like, you're always thinking, well, what storyline is going to pick up on this day? What do we need people to say to orient the viewer, and where are the like layers of emotion coming from? So you're trying to write like in the moment by making the decisions about what you go and point the camera at, and sometimes you miss things.
That's got to be a pretty unique skill set.
Yeah, I found it very stressful, which I think maybe is normal. It's also really fun because things unfold that are totally surprising. I think also because we were working with teenagers, they're such like odd people. Like they're not, they're developing their sense of self, and then you're sticking a camera in their face and you're asking them questions. But they really developed relationships with us where they started to open up and show their personalities. And so it was about like choosing who to spend that time building trust with as well. And that was like, I really enjoyed that. That was super cool to see them start saying jokes and actually being people in front of the camera. But yeah, I don't know. This is why I say occasional filmmaker, because the stress of it is just, when you're writing something on your computer, you can go back and change that later. There's no like immediate decision that is going to be held forever. You get time to consider what you're doing, whereas in film there's a lot of just like yes, no, decide now, and that will be set in stone for the rest of the project.
Did you feel that way with journalism as well? Just it by nature being a little more time sensitive?
Yeah, there's a lot of deadlines. I never did daily news. Like, I worked on weekly newspapers, and then we would publish things daily, but they were like very straightforward, objective reporting things. So I definitely got to a point with the weekly news cycle where I would have like a couple of days to decide, am I comfortable? Is this the right way to depict something? And that was sort of enough. But then also with journalism, the other thing is it goes to an editor, they change it, they don't tell you what they've done, and then it comes out in the paper with your name on it, and it might be entirely different to what you wrote. It's a very strange experience. Yeah. Has that happened to you?
Yeah, and I think it's I like think in a lot of ways it's a positive, and especially doing that kind of stuff, because you're doing a lot, it's a lot easier to be a bit more removed and not as precious about your work, and I think that part of it is beneficial. I
think that's a huge thing for like getting better at writing as well, like just practicing so much, writing so much under so much time pressure. Your sentences are going to get a lot cleaner, a lot more interesting, a lot more efficient over the years of doing that practice. Yeah.
Do you think like that and like working in film had a positive impact on your creative writing, or maybe not? Yeah.
I think definitely positive. Yeah. I think it's all practice, right? I think I've been so lucky to have the chance to practice in my day job for my creative work, whereas a lot of people have to do a day job that is so divorced from what they want to achieve with their creative work. And while like the voice of the writing that I was doing as a journalist and as a filmmaker is not my voice as a writer, it's like the technical aspects are so much better. And the film stuff really helped me with kind of thinking about how visual language and scene setting can be used in print as well. And like how the rhetoric of visual symbolism and imagery translates to a reader. I think I'm much more reliant on that as a writer since being in film, because you can do so much with like just locking a still camera at something that feels like poignant, and you can do that as a writer as well.
That's really interesting, because I definitely think, and even with people I've spoken to for this podcast, there's kind of two schools of thought of like a very parallel kind of day job that's feeding into your creative life, or something that's just totally divorced from it and it's like not even thinking about it, and that space kind of gives you kind of more energy to engage with your creative practice.
Yeah, I think they're both true, right? As with so many things.
Whatever floats your boat.
Also, I think maybe at different times in your life, I'm now like much more tired than I used to be. And I'm starting to feel the strain of a day job that requires creative energy, maybe taking away from my capacity to do my own creative work. But, you know, for the first 20 years of my career, I think it was really helpful and they fueled each other. But I might be at a point now where I need to lie down more often. So.
Well, that said, that like your experience of doing these things at work is pretty full on, especially compared to a lot of people. And I think it's one of those like, when maybe people hear your job titles, it's this thing that a lot of people would aspire to without realizing the amount of work that goes in, because you have been the founding editor of... Well, I've got 3, but you mentioned another one. So I had Collect, CityMag, and Splinter. And does that make you like a serial founder?
Yeah, I guess I should say... so before Collect, there was Merge, and actually Merge was like my ex-boyfriend and business partner. It was like him and 2 friends founded Merge, and then him and a different friend founded Collect, and I sort of like glommed onto it and became, I think I started as the deputy editor and then I became the editor. And then he and I founded CityMag together, and then Splinter was just me. But also with support from, well, the whole thing of Splinter actually was spearheaded by Writers SA and Flinders University and Adelaide University. And then they hired me, which was it's a real joy to like be the founding editor of something without the financial risk of it.
Why do you think you found yourself in this position like so many times?
Yeah, I don't know. Once you've done it once, you do have like a pretty unique skill set that sets you up to do it again. I'm really interested, and I don't think I knew this like before I'd worked on Merge or Collect or CityMag, but I'm really interested in like how a publication sets an editorial agenda and creates its own voice that is like allows for writers to have a voice, but they all feel somehow cohesive. So I think that I just like really like executing that work. And I've been really lucky to have the opportunity to do that a few times. So yeah, I mean, with Splinter, I ummed and ahed about applying for the job because I was like, I don't know if I can take the stress of this again. But then I wrote a job application that was really like, I know how to do this, not many people do. And it was like, I read it back, you know, before I had my job interview, and I was like, who wrote this? Was it me? It sounds really like staunch and confident, which is not how I feel.
You should. Splinter does, especially what you're saying, that like very clear voice. Definitely, Splinter has that.
Thank you. That's really nice to hear. we try. I think, you know, it's only we're only on our 4th issue with Splinter, so it's evolving, and every issue I think about how we could do that better, but it's nice to hear that it's like on the right track.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And before we spoke, you mentioned taking riskier paths. Was Splinter one of those that worked out, and also a coffee shop? Yeah.
That was a really... The Splinter definitely was one juncture. The earlier juncture, I had been like working in journalism. I'd been at a newspaper that got shut down in the time when lots of newspapers were shutting down. And I'd gone to work in Parliament House, which had never been like on my bingo card, but was interesting. And I really liked the politician I worked for. She was from a minor party that was like working on behalf of people with disabilities and trying to improve policies and regulation around disability services and the justice system. But I also just found it so boring. Like, I think I had been in such adrenaline-fueled workplaces, and a workplace that had like an expectation that you wouldn't work as much overtime, and the deadlines weren't every week, they were like every 3 months, and I just couldn't adjust to it very well. But they did pay me so much money as well. Like it was $90,000 or something, and I was 23, and I had no idea what to do with like that much financial security. And I think lots of people at that stage, they start to think about like housing, and I felt the pull of like, oh, should I continue down this path of like a well-paid, secure job where every year you get increased benefits, and instead of doing that, I quit and took all the money I'd saved and we started a coffee shop and CityMag at the same time.
Yeah, right, because all the newspapers had been failing.
Yeah.
This is the best thing I should do.
Thought, I've got like 25 grand, so how could I throw it away immediately? And it felt like really scary to do. Obviously, it's like a huge privilege to have saved that money and to be able to do it. But our last magazine had put us into an enormous amount of debt, and it seemed like, pretty silly to start another one. And then I'm not really sure why we decided we should like pair that with starting a coffee shop. That seems even sillier. Also, we didn't really serve coffee. I was like, no, it's going to be a tea house. Nobody wants tea. Like, really wrong-headed, the whole endeavour. But it was fun. I was trying to like interview people and write stories for CityMag in between making sandwiches and tea, which was like pretty horrible actually, but in retrospect, a lot of fun. And it worked out in the end. Like we eventually closed the coffee shop. I think the council shut us down because we had our dog in the in the space, and we weren't willing to like not have the dog. So, and then by that point, CityMag had kind of like started working, both as a magazine and sort of as a business. So, yeah. But yeah, I felt like a lot of pressure in my own brain that like, what if I'm making what if I never can get back to any type of financial security and I have very little superannuation and, not having grown up with a lot of money, it did seem risky. I don't have a huge safety net. And I guess I'm just really lucky that it didn't go a different direction.
I think you're probably not the only creative person that doesn't have a lot of superannuation.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think this is the thing that lots of people have to make these decisions. Everybody in the creative industries is constantly assessing this toss-up between security and like doing something they're really interested in doing, something they're really curious about. And absolutely no judgment on people who make the opposite decision, because I'm still like constantly wondering if I've done the wrong thing.
And I think it is like it's a very courageous decision. And I think it plays into, like kind of mentioned earlier, some people like to have a steady job that has nothing to do with their creative practice and they don't need to think about one while they're doing the other. And some people need to have both, and they need to have something that fuels it. And sometimes that doesn't come with the financial stability, but like that's just what you need to do.
Yeah, totally. It's great that people can find different things that fit for them, but it's also like I think alarming on a societal level that the decision is so difficult, and it puts people who are less privileged in a position where they're less likely to be able to pursue creative work
without it being a scary sacrifice.
Yeah, and sometimes it's just not possible. Like I was lucky, I don't have any dependents. Like my parents don't need me to give them money. Other people have to support either their children, their parents, other friends and family, and they like very quickly their options become super narrow. So, I think that it goes back to like what we value as a society and how I'm always talking about neoliberalism and capitalism and being like, sorry, everybody, but how individually focused we are and how devalued creative input is. And that makes life hard for a lot of people, and much harder than it has been for me.
Well, I actually have a quote here from something you wrote a while ago. The problem really is that literature is often created and received in private, and it makes it harder for our capitalist society to assign value to it. It's pretty poignant what we're talking about. Like, what's the solution?
Great.
This would be a rabbit hole, maybe.
Communism. I'm not sure. I'm not sold on communism either, to be honest. I mean, I think we were doing better when we had more socialist values underpinning our governance. But I also have learnt, I've spent a lot more time recently reading Indigenous writers and thinking about how much I, as a non-Indigenous person, don't understand about other ways of running societies and running community, and I'm pretty sure that there are answers among those knowledge systems that we have probably been ignoring for a long time. But in short, I have no idea how we fix this. I think we definitely need to listen to people who we have not been listening to, and learn from them. But a real politic sense, what's the likelihood of us enfranchising people rather than disenfranchising them? Pretty low.
I think it's and even from just a pure, obviously there's so many things that can be done just for society in general, but even just from a creative standpoint, I don't know if there's an easy answer. I think in the interview I did with Mike Ladd, he mentioned that there's now a kind of basic income for poets in Ireland.
Yeah, that's a really interesting policy.
But even with that, it's it's only a certain group. So is that okay? It's obviously a great thing that there are some poets now who are making enough money to write poetry full time, which is an incredible thing, but then also who has access to that funding
and who's the gatekeeper that decides what the criteria is for access. And then publishing is such an interesting sector as well, because there's so many gatekeepers and they're so dialed into the norms of the moment. It is ultimately a commercial enterprise. So if the criteria in Ireland is about how successful your published work is, I don't think there's no utility to people curating things, said as a magazine editor. But I don't
want to call you a gatekeeper, but in some
I'm
ways
definitely a gatekeeper, and I feel ethically weird about it. But I think deciding if someone should get this income based on the decisions of those gatekeepers is really problematic.
I think the good thing about you being a gatekeeper is it seems like you put a lot of thought into it, and not just thought about a product or kind of your experience of it, but what it means to other people.
Yeah, my therapist's maybe it's too much thought. Maybe it's spiraling, but no, I think it's really important, and that's the job. If you're going to take this job as a relatively privileged white person, it's incumbent upon me to do the work of collaborating with people, listening to them. I have a great advisory committee for Splinter, which is a bunch of writers, experienced writers with different backgrounds, who kind of advocate for people from different communities, and I would feel much less confident in doing my job if I didn't have them to call up and be hey, what do you think about this thing? What should I do here? So that's super important.
Before we spoke, you mentioned you were kind of leaning towards a slower quite a life. And now you've taken on this role that in and of itself, without this kind of peripheral thinking, is already massive. And then you're adding, which again, thank you for being a person who's doing that in this role. But it's not very conducive to that quite simple life that you said you're looking for.
Totally. I think I'm like at a personal moment where I'm like, is it better to be stressed or is it better to be bored? And I don't know. Like I've chosen stressed for the moment. But yeah, I think that's another, like probably also another side effect of capitalist culture, where you can either
hustle,
grind, and like do something that you're really interested in, or you can like disengage a little bit, and feel a bit bored probably, but have more energy for your own creative work. So yeah, I don't know what to do. If you have any advice.
No. I'm like, in the same place of like, I've probably chosen bored.
Okay.
And love it a lot of the time.
Great.
But there's still other times where I'm like, I should get a real job. And like,
I feel like you do like a lot of interesting things, like very diverse.
Yeah,
threads.
But I'm a big like, many shallow wells don't strike oil.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm very guilty of like being super interested in a lot of things, but not engaging. Really, like writing and specifically poetry is the first thing in a while I've like really like committed to. Okay. Everything else is kind of like shiny object.
Dip your toe in.
Yeah. And this kind of endeavor, the podcast, is something but this is also a way of kind of bringing together my interest in all of these different fields and getting to geek out about it a little bit in a way that I feel like is respectful to the people who have put in years and years of effort.
Yeah, that's nice. I also feel like it could be, I don't know, it's just a lot of extra work, right? For you're doing a lot of like project managing around it.
Yeah. And I think I'm just lucky in the space that I'm in right now, and very lucky to have a wife that's so supportive.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that's hugely important is like if you have a partner, some partners would not understand the why you would make life more difficult for yourself by choosing to take risks, to do more creative work that is like badly paid and very, very stressful. So yeah, I think that's super important. Also, like there are some creative people I know who just have like partners with really well-paid jobs. That seems smart. I married another creative person, which but he's great. So,
but again, you're getting that moral support. Like you can do it.
He is so supportive, which is like a real delight. I don't think I would have pursued my own creative writing nearly as much as I have without his like faultless, persistent encouragement.
And I do definitely want to talk about your creative writing, but as far as like the stressful, not that well paid, well, I actually don't know. Can you talk about Splinter and kind of how you kind of mentioned very briefly how it came into existence, but how it started, how you got involved, besides your very stern cover letter.
My weirdly confident cover letter. So Splinter is a literary journal. Sometimes I say literary magazine because I think journal can sound misleading, sound like a peer-reviewed academic thing, but it is like for general readership. Literary journals publish like short fiction, poetry, creative nonfiction. Are they something that as a poet, you probably do know literary journals around Australia, like prior. Are you familiar with many of them?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I just talk to so many people who have no idea what a literary journal is. And I honestly, for much of my career, didn't know either. But there's a great community of literary journals in Australia, some really strong publications that have been going for decades. But in South Australia, there hadn't been one in print, I think, since 2014. And literary journals sort of function as like a rallying point for the literary community in a place, and also a way, I don't know, it's just something for writers to aim towards, and having one in your own state makes it feel a bit more attainable. So Writers SA, which is like the peak writing organisation in South Australia, was like, this is a real problem that we don't have a regularly published literary journal here. And they went and talked with three major universities in the state, and managed to get them all to collaborate.
Because that's quite unique. Because most literary journals are a lot of the time, a single uni.
Yes, like housed within a creative writing department in a university. I think, as far as I know, I might be wrong about this, but Splinter is the only one in South Australia that's like cross-university institutions. Yeah, that was Jessica Alice, who was a former CEO of Writers SA, brought these people together and like negotiated. Like the universities can be quite competitive, but they all kind of signed on to this idea of doing something for the literary community together. And then they went as a collaborative group and got some funding from Create SA, which is the state government arts body. And then they hired me, which was nice of them. And that's when...
Well, it sounded like they didn't really have a choice. Like,
I was going to be so mad at them. No. I would have actually been so relieved. I didn't think I would get the job, and I just thought, I should apply so I don't regret not trying. And I was like, they'll hire someone from interstate who's run a literary journal before, and then I can like bitch with my friend about like everything they're doing wrong, and that'll be good. And instead they hired me. I think they had to hire someone from South Australia because of the grant money from the South Australian government. And then I was like, now I'm going to be the person that everyone's bitching about. I'm like the other end.
I've heard no bitching.
Okay, I'm sure people like hate some of the decisions I've made, but that's like par for the course.
Yeah, that's why you have like an advisory board and you can push some of the blame onto them.
Yeah, totally. You just have to like live with... I think that's the other thing about having published so much stuff as a journalist is like, you realise that people are going to hate what you do, no matter what you do, and you can't make everyone happy, and that's okay. I say this like I'm so calm about it. I find it so upsetting, but like after a few days, I feel okay about it.
Now you've got this track though, you can play back in your
head.
Yeah.
Just loop this 30 seconds of the podcast. So when I came on with Splinter, it was like fairly high level. They just were like, we need a literary journal. I think they were like, it was still unclear if it should be online as well as print or print only or just online. There wasn't a name. So there was like a lot of big decisions to make very quickly, which was exciting, but also quite stressful.
I'm very glad you went print. Like, I'm sure it would have been great if it was online, but there's just something different about
I love print.
And as a writer, like seeing your work in print is such a different experience. Like, don't get me wrong, very grateful whenever like anything gets published online, but it's still like a very cool experience to have this thing you get to put in your bookcase. And
yeah, I totally agree, and I'm so resistant to online publishing actually. For both Splinter and CityMag, I started both of them as print only, like. And there's a good business case for doing that, which makes it easier because if you're going to publish online, you really have to invest in the right type of content that makes sense in that environment. And that's different to print content. And you also have to have all this like web infrastructure that you don't need if you're not publishing online. And for Splinter particularly, we'd have to have a paywall, all this management of subscribers that we don't have to do at the moment. So I was like, oh, great.
And I think it just makes
we'll save this money and instead spend thousands and thousands on printing on paper.
But I feel like it does create a more intentional, slower experience.
Absolutely.
Like, especially for a reader. Like, I think the expectation with online stuff is like new, fast, like clickbaity, like, this gives you kind of inherent in what it is it's meant to be the opposite of that.
Yeah, 100%. It's like escape from the many attention pulls that you have when you're online, like open the print product. It's so much nicer as an editor as well to make, it's like a controlled environment that a reader's going into, so you can think about how you juxtapose pieces of writing and how you create, not that anybody reads it cover to cover, but I imagine this reader sitting down and starting at the start and like how they move through the emotional and like emotional journey of the whole issue and the pace of it.
I read it in order, so I definitely,
okay.
But like very like my reading happens when my daughter is distracted, so it's like, and it's actually the perfect like publication for that.
Paragraph,
one thing quickly.
one poem, and then...
but no, it does. There is a real like ebb and flow of
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for being my ideal and I thought imagined reader. But yeah, you can't do that online. People are going to enter from so many different points online, and you can't be like it's. I feel like this is maybe revealing my need for control, which I hadn't thought about before. But you don't know how a reader's coming to you. You know, if they're coming from a social media feed, a search, a recommendation, a link, whatever, and then you don't know where they're going to go after they read whatever they've come for. So you can't create like a larger story online as easily as you can in print, and that's like what I'm interested in doing. So I reluctantly come to online publishing as a necessity rather than like as something that I'm genuinely curious to get right.
Well, I think this is then a question. I wrote this question for you as a writer, but now I'm curious for you as an editor as well. You had a piece in Kill Your Darlings in 2021, so it's like a bit of a deep pull.
Yeah.
But it was about MasterChef.
Oh my God, yeah, I love that piece.
But it was about it, like being soft propaganda essentially for this like egalitarian version of Australia that doesn't really exist. But you made a point towards the end that you didn't think the creators had that in mind when they made it. And I guess that's my question is, as a writer and as an editor, what is your kind of, do you think there is a responsibility for like how your work may be used, or can you have any control over it? Or is it just a once it's out in the public, it's completely out of your hands? Is it something you think about?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. I think you have to take that responsibility on as both a writer and an editor. Some of it may be out of your control, but if you have to think like really carefully about what's layered into what you're creating, and how that may be interpreted or used by third parties. And that's particularly true if you're working in, I would say, the more difficult spaces of like MasterChef. They're working with a commercial broadcaster, and ultimately they probably do have really nice intentions for what they're making. It's like a very, on one level, a very wholesome show. But you have to be realistic about what the people who are paying you are getting out of your work. And then, I think you have to moderate how that usage, how much scope you leave for problematic usage. Yeah, I think it's really vexed though. I mean, I think about like all the writers who were with University of Queensland Press recently. Jazz Money and Matt Chun had a really terrible experience with UQP. They like pulped this children's book that Jazz Money, who's a First Nations writer, and Matt Chun, who's an illustrator, had created together. They're both like quite outspoken about Palestine, and the reason UQP gave for pulping the book was something Matt Chun had said publicly previously. And then all these writers who had contracts with UQP cancelled their contracts. And that's because I think those writers were thinking about, like, what does it mean for my work to be published by UQP when they're, like, not supporting the end of a genocide, is one way of looking at what happened. And I feel like, yeah, you have to... I also have no judgment for the writers who have stayed with UQP. There's a lot of factors in everybody's life that we can't understand. But for those who were able to leave, I think they're making that decision on the basis of, like, how will my work be used? Will it be helping to sanitize the brand of this publisher, if I continue to publish with them? And so, yeah, you have to, like, that's one of the hard things about making things that are public, is ultimately you might not have foreseen how someone will interpret it, but you're in dialogue with an audience, so you're still complicit in that in some way.
I think that's what's so, like, you would think a really easy answer to that question is, like, try and work with independent publishers, or, like, you'd think universities would be, like, a great route to go. But even, there's obviously complications there as well.
And UQP has previously been known to be really supportive of, like, activist writers. One of their publishers is very heavily involved with, I'm not sure if she's a co-founder with Readers and Writers Against Genocide. Like, they have appeared to be really respectable on this front before. So whether it's changes in the university that have kind of trickled down into their publishing arm, who knows? But it's like, you don't know what you don't know until it happens.
Such a tricky one.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar to Adelaide Writers' Week, right? Has Louise Adler, who was the artistic director, has a history of, like, really staunch programming, and then her board intervened and meddled with her program, and then writers had to leave. But a lot of writers made it clear when they boycotted the festival that they weren't boycotting the staff decisions. It's about the decisions that the board was making.
And that obviously resulted in constellations, and this really beautiful thing came out of it. And
which was amazing. The community response, both from, like, everybody organising events who did so much work to make these amazing events happen, but also, like, the audience that rocked up. So many people came out to those Constellations events, and that was, like, very reassuring. Which is very cool. But I think, like, obviously journalism, CityMag, like, you have a lot of work out in the world. I read as much as I could. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No, it was great. It was a great, like, I think out of anyone I've interviewed, you have the most work. So it was a lot of, and like, I really like to actually hear your writing voice, which is even, I found really interesting, even in some of the stuff, like, that is on Kill Your Darlings, and you have, like, a lot of parentheses, and, like, which I like to write like that. So it's like, it's a really, it was really cool to see it tackling really, like, heavy topics, but in this, like, I don't want to say it's a light way of writing, but it's a very accessible way of writing.
It's chatty, for sure.
But I wonder, like, having so much work out there over a pretty considerable period of time, what's your relationship with your early work? And, like, how do you feel about growing in public as a writer?
Yeah. I think I'm in denial about this. I just assume like no one's ever going to go back and read it.
Unless they're doing a podcast.
Yeah. Also so kind of you to like actually do research. Like there's lots of well-paid journalists who wouldn't research that much for an interview. So thanks. That's very like,
That's okay.
it's really considerate. Yeah, there's some videos of my early journalism career which are pretty embarrassing. There's one where I interview Grug. It's like
the kids' book, Grug?
Yeah, there's a stage show of Grug. And it's like there's nothing particularly wrong with it. The filming is poor. That was also me. I'm not ragging on anyone else. But it's just like I like looking at an early 20s version of yourself interviewing a puppet is weird.
Did Grug talk?
I don't think Grug does. I don't think he talks. He like nods and does body movement.
Right.
He's super cute. You should take your daughter to see a Grug show if there's another one on soon. Yeah, some stuff like that has like a more visual element to it. I just feel like really embarrassed about being perceived. But mostly I just try not to think about it. I think that's the only way to deal with it. Even in the short term, if I publish anything, which like it's been a couple of years since I've done anything other than Splinter, but once it's like out in the world, I don't engage with it because I can't. I just like, I would be way too anxious. I just pretend it has never happened. Which will be the same for this podcast. Yeah. I'll post about it on Splinter and then I won't think about it. And hopefully, probably no one's going to be mean.
No one will be mean.
Yeah, but I'm mean to myself, so it's best for me not to engage with it. Yeah, I think if I thought about it, terrifying, like the things that I wrote in 2008 or whatever, like, they must be really bad. Did you find any of, I was on a community radio current affairs show. It was my first journalism job.
No, I think like 2016 was as far back as
great.
I dove.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the early community radio packages are like, but I imagine they're very like hack wannabe.
Right.
You know, like me trying to be cool and vox popping people on the street. And I think that would be pretty embarrassing as well.
Like you mentioned before we start, the never-ending terror and self-doubt. Does this fit into that? Or is that how you feel before things come out into the world?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's like... well, certainly for me, it's a essential part of the creative process. Do you find that also?
Yes and no.
Okay,
not all the time.
Yeah.
I think more so after. And maybe I'm like submitting things and it's work that I think is really cool and like it doesn't get the response. But I think that gets offset with having positive reactions to work, I think is not as good. So it makes me just think that I don't know anything. So like my thoughts of self-doubt are equally as invalid as my...
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it, actually. That's smart. I think like in the process of writing, particularly like my own more creative work, I am riddled with doubt and like I have to like sidle up to the computer and pretend I'm not going to write. Otherwise my brain can't cope with the pressure of the idea of writing. And then I'll write like 2,000 words in 45 minutes and then sidle away. And it's like...
That's very impressive.
One of the things I could do is write really quickly because I've written so much. That doesn't mean it's good. It just is on the page, which is better than not having written anything, right? But yeah, I can't I have to absolutely deceive myself that I'm not doing it, and then that's the only way to make it happen, which I don't know what is wrong with me. But I wrote like a whole book draft in 3 months doing that. Wow. Like it's still effective.
Tricking yourself in.
Yeah, I would have like set days, a word count for that day, and like I'd procrastinate for 4 hours and then vomit out the words and then walk away. And it accrued over an amount of time. But I also think that, like, not in the productive part of the process, but as an editor of my own work and also as an editor of Splinter, the questioning and the self-doubt is really important because it allows me to, like, not privilege my own point of view all the time and to think about, like, well, what bias is hidden in the decisions I'm making, and to see, like, working with other writers to see their perspective on what we're editing together as just as valid. I never feel like, oh, I'm right about this, how you should approach this paragraph or whatever. I'm sort of like, I have an idea, and if you have a different idea, that's great. Everything in what we do is so subjective, so I think the doubt and the questioning is important for those relationships.
And do you think that that's had an effect on your writing, your specific, like, personal writing as well? Because, like, obviously you said you edit your own work. I'm sure, like, it goes through other editors as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was a long time when, like, as a working journalist, it went through other editors who, as you know, are really brutal. But that was, like, helpful for me at that stage of my career because I learned a lot really quickly. And then in the CityMag years, it was just me editing my own work for like 6 to 8 years. I worked on.
That's so tough. Like,
yeah,
it's
it was
hard to edit your own work because you've just seen it so much.
Yeah, and I was editing other writers at the same time, and I was working on. We did like magazine collaborations with this hotel company in America. So between issues of CityMag, I was going to the States and like making a magazine in a neighborhood there, and that was entirely written by me and entirely edited by me. So it was this like enormous volume of my own work that I was editing. And then it was when I started working for like Kill Your Darlings that I got to be edited by another literary editor, and they're much more collaborative, and that was such a joy. I felt like, oh my God, it's like these people are here to save me from myself. Yeah, so I think I developed like a really practical approach to editing myself where I'd just be like, well, this is the decision I've made. I just have to go with it, which is good for like getting things done. But yeah. I still have very little confidence in a lot of those decisions.
Self-doubt.
Yeah.
Do you think it's something other writers should practice, editing themselves before?
I mean, I think you have to, right? It's hard for me to say, coming from my background where I just, like, there wasn't really another choice, but don't submit something to Splinter if you haven't had a go at like if you hadn't done a pass of checking. You've got to, I think as a writer, you have to put on the reader's hat and be like, how will someone experience this cold, having no context on what I'm trying to communicate? And yeah, at the very least, do that. I mean, I think poets are really good at this, actually, because so many poets are deeply invested in, like, the rhythm, the rhetoric of each, like, every single word that you choose. Lots of the poets that we work with at Splinter, I'll, like, write a question in an edit, and they come back with such interesting responses about why they've made the choices that they've made. Whereas in prose, you can be a bit more like slapdash, just like I wrote that sentence and I moved on.
But I think with Splinter, because it's so many like shorter pieces, there is a bit more. I feel like there would be a little more intentionality than maybe like a 800-page book.
Definitely, yes, 100%. I think that. I mean, I worked with one short story writer he was a musician, like a composer, and he had like timed out the syllables of every sentence. I think his story was like 6,000 words long, and he had like an intentional tempo that ran throughout the whole story. So anytime I was like amending a word choice, he was like, oh, we can't use that because there's a different number of syllables to the word I had chosen. And I was like, okay.
That's a pretty good way to like safeguard your work from any editing.
He was amazing in that he was still open to making changes, but he just wanted to like protect this rhythm. And it was such a beautiful, like poetic rhythmic piece that I was like, great, let's work towards protecting that. But he was also willing to find alternatives for things that I thought weren't quite on the money. Yeah.
Given that like self-doubt plays such a big part in like the process, you also mentioned before we spoke about questioning the validity and motivation of what you do. How do you find that? You got to move past the self-doubt, and then are you like questioning again? Is that all part of the same?
No, I think they're distinct. It's exhausting. Yeah, I think this is like specific to, renewed when I started working with Splinter, because, and I think this relates back to what we were talking about around what we value as a community and as a society. Literary journals are not as well read as lots of other publications. Like CityMag, we would have hundreds of thousands of readers on some stories once we started publishing online. Splinter, we're looking more in the like 1,000 to 2,000 readers. And for me, I had to do this assessment of like, well, if you're talking to less people, does that make the whole endeavour less valuable? I think I feel more comfortable with it now. Like niche things aren't necessarily unimportant just because there's less people involved. And a lot of the purpose of Splinter is giving writers a chance to be published, to be edited, to have that byline that then they can use when they approach a publisher for a book or something like that. And, you know, even if only 5 people read it, if one reader found like their next favourite writer, that's probably valuable. But also, like, I just struggle with the scale of the whole thing and how much work is required, how many resources, particularly an organisation like Writers SA, which is a really small organisation, and then like to make Splinter, I'm drawing a lot of resources from that already like pressured organisation. And then we get like arts funding from the government, which is such a small pool. Should other people be getting that? Would that have a greater impact? You know, these are all the questions that I think about every time I put a budget together. But I do, like, I feel like I have come around to it maybe in the last 6 months being valuable for the community, even if we don't end up with 30,000 readers in the future. It still has a purpose. I hope.
No, it definitely does. But no, I think like you listed all the reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, I don't know. And then also because of the self-doubt, I'm like, well, maybe someone else would make a heaps better journal that they would have a 10,000 or 30,000 readership in seconds. I don't know. But somewhere, actually, Hannah Kent, oh my God, name drop, who, you know, very famous South Australian author, but also was a co-founder of Kill Your Darlings. She said to me, like, you can only make the journal that you can make. Someone else would make a different one. And I was like, yeah, I guess it's okay just to like relax about that, maybe. I guess.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm trying to be relaxed.
Can you talk a bit about the process of how Splinter Journal, like an issue comes together? Like, how do you find writers? What is the, I'm sure, very intense reading everyone's work? Because like you said, like part of the reason it should exist is for writers to have work published, and there's so many writers publishing, like submitting so much work.
Oh my God, yeah. The submissions is wild. So we do a mix of open submissions call out and commissions. So there's usually each issue there's a few ideas that I have that I'm like, I think we really need to publish on this topic. And I will ask for submissions on those topics, but I also will usually go and talk to some writers who I love the work of and ask them if they might be interested in writing on commission. And that's a really like nerve-wracking but exciting process. For issue 1, I emailed a lot of people who would have absolutely no interest in writing for a new literary journal, like Helen Garner and Christos Chalkis and, you know, these type of people. They didn't write back, which was really surprising. But I was just every day just emailing famous writers, you know. Hey, Bruce Pascoe, do you want to write an essay for us? No, weird. But now that I'm like less nervous about whether we need like big names to sell the journal, I can approach writers who maybe are less well known but whose work I'm like super into. And it's a fun part of being an editor is thinking about like how this person writes, what they write about, and then like matching an idea for an essay or whatever with the right person. And you send off the email to them and you can tell if it landed for them because they'll write back. Like,
that's usually a good sign.
They'll write back quickly and like really enthusiastically and add to your idea, and then it's a really fun process of like back and forthing with them as they draft or research. But yeah, the open submissions we do twice a year. We get like more than 1,000 submissions, which is so like really reassuring that writers want to be published in Splinter, and also so overwhelming. It's so much reading. And then I work with, there's the advisory committee who are experienced writers, and then I work with another group of emerging writers called our editorial committee, and they help me read all of the submissions. They do usually. When we started, I would read everything, but now it's just like not possible because there's twice as many submissions as there used to be.
Especially because a lot of them are essays and short stories.
Yeah, some
short stories aren't that short.
Some of the stories are like 15,000 words. I would say maybe like 5 submissions every round is just a whole book. I don't read them. It says explicitly not to send us your whole book, but people do it anyway. Yeah, so the editorial committee does a first pass, and then I read what they have like given a thumbs up to. And then I look at like how all the submissions have scored and try to like map out. Do you know what a flat plan is? I mean,
like for
a publication.
Yes.
Yeah. Flat planning is like my favorite part of the whole process, where you you assign a piece of writing to each page of. And
you've decided what's going in at that point, and
well, sort of. I feel like they feed into each other because you like will visualize it by like mapping out what will be on each page, and then you'll be like, oh, actually, to sit between this short story that's about like a sexual assault and this essay that's much more journalistic. I need like something
buffer.
to buffer.
Yeah.
So maybe like a poem that I thought wasn't going to end up will get put in because it suits the content mix and will act as a buffer.
Do you like print everything out and like, I'm imagining like a big like on the floor?
No, it's a Google sheet.
Right.
A lot of copying and pasting of
Yeah.
color-coded things in. It's like very nerdy and not fun looking, but it is a fun process because you're just like imagining the issue in so many different ways. And there's so many things to balance about like, like where are the writers based? What's their cultural background? Like just making sure that all the voices that we want to make sure are in there are in there. Which is something I think like some people have issues with, but I've never found like there's no shortage of great writers representing all types of communities. So I don't like, it never seems very hard to me. But
I think this is like, really good thing for especially writers, but anyone who's submitting any kind of work anywhere to hear is like, there's so many things that go into the decision-making process. It's not a direct like, your work sucks, that's why it's not in here.
That's really important. It's like, there are so many great pieces of writing that I say no to, and I like feel a weird sort of grief for like, oh, someone else is going to get to publish this. And I wish that I could have fit it in, but there's budget issues. Sometimes it'll just be like a toss up between one short story and another short story, and I pick the one that fits on the pages that I have left. It's like literally, oh, yours was 400 words longer, so it's a no. So people should definitely keep that in mind. There's so many logistical issues that feed into whether your piece gets chosen. That being said, every time I get rejected, I am like so devastated.
Ignore all of those reasons that you know.
Absolutely. And I am absolutely convinced it's because I'm a terrible writer and no other reason.
We spoke about it very briefly at the start, and if you've have time, like I really want to talk about your personal work.
Yeah.
And you mentioned your memoir. Is it The Same House? That's a title.
Yeah,
I found.
yes.
Is that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
That's
Research.
well done.
And you also mentioned, rejection when it came to submitting that.
Yeah, totally. I'm in a real season of rejection for the memoir at the moment, which is exciting. I think I finished the second draft kind of like 3/4 of the way through last year. And I'd worked with, like I initially had Amra Pajalic mentored me to write the first draft. She is like an award-winning author of fiction and non-fiction, but she had written a memoir about her Bosnian mother who had bipolar, and my memoir is about my relationship with my Turkish grandmother who had bipolar and early onset Alzheimer's. So Amra was really helpful in like navigating what are the ethical lines in depicting someone who has mental illness but who also like has affected your life. And then on the second draft I worked with Ellena Savage, who's a great writer. Her debut novel is out, came out recently. It's called The Ruiners. Very, very much recommend.
We'll put links in for everything.
Yeah, great. Ellena had like given me ideas for completely restructuring how making the memoir non-chronological, basically non-linear. So I went away for a month and did that, and then sent it back to Ellena, and she was like, "You did it, it's great." So that gave me the confidence to start submitting it. But
is it a traditional memoir, or does it have like, I guess this is the hard thing, like with memoir is like your recollection of events and...
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole concept of the memoir is, so when my grandmother died, she left this like box of notes, which my family were like, what is this? And she had actually had a publishing contract for a fiction book, and then she had a manic episode, and this is in like typewriter era, she destroyed the manuscript for her fiction book. She like cut it up and burnt it, and then she rewrote the book in a few days. But instead of the fiction book the publisher had wanted, she wrote this sort of like surreal autobiography, which the publisher did not want. Surprising. So I kind of work through her writing to revisit how I experienced growing up with her. So I lived with her when I was a kid, and we had a terrible relationship. Like, she was very hostile towards me, and not like either like completely not disinterested or really hostile. So I have this like image of her as a horrible person, really, but by looking at her own depiction of her life, I can revisit my memories of her and kind of see them from her perspective, like understand what she was going through, empathize with her position. So yeah, it's really about like the whole crux of the memoir is questioning like whose reality gets to be more valid, and understanding that other people do deserve their own version of reality, and you have to respect that even if it is painful. Yeah, which is like, I think the non-chronological structure was a great like key to unlocking those themes more effectively. But yeah, it's heavy.
It sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah, I hope it's interesting. I hope that it will be relevant to people who have like ambivalent family relationships, whether that's because of mental illness or any other host of reasons that people might have. I think it's like interesting to reconcile that ambivalence.
I think even beyond that, like just the understanding that everyone has their own experience.
Totally.
And, like, yeah, their even experience in their relationship with you or with anyone is, totally different to what you might perceive it as. Or...
Totally. I think it's so interesting, and probably what like everything I do as a writer and editor is sort of about, this question of like, how close can you get to someone else's world? Like, how much can you bridge that gap, and how much do you have to just accept that there is a void there?
But that empathy can also be torturous and stressful.
Totally. Yeah, but I have like sent it out now to like a couple of agents and a couple of publishers, and so far nobody wants to publish it.
But something... Well, if you're listening, publishers, publish it. But something really interesting, I think you mentioned that you were working with people with each even individual draft. And I think a lot of the time people can think writers and a lot of creative endeavours need to be quite a solitary experience. But this wasn't for you.
I mean, yeah,
Yes,
it was
and
both.
obviously, yeah.
But I felt like I had no idea how to write a book. I hadn't done it before.
I actually feel exactly the same way. Like, with how much writing I do, it feels like a just totally different thing.
It's wild, right? It's such a... I think the longest thing I'd written before I started on the book was like 10,000 words. And even that, structurally and in terms of like the process to write it, I was like at a real loss for a lot of it. And I was like... a book is 6 times longer than that. I don't know how, and you know, I'm a non-fiction writer, and yes, memoir is non-fiction, but it uses like characterization, plot, symbols, and I was like, okay, I use some of these things instinctively, but I've never...
Do you think the film stuff helped?
Probably, yeah. I think in terms of like structuring the longer form narrative, I did take the post-it note method that the film guys had taught me. I've had like all the key story beats and the scenes underneath them on Post-it notes that I would move around, which I think is very like, cliche, see it in a film, writer business. But that was super helpful, particularly for the restructure. But yeah, I just felt like lost knowing it, like, because I haven't studied creative writing as well. What are the key elements of a scene? And you can write these things instinctively, and I think sometimes some people will get it right all the time just from the outset. But when I sent my first mentor, Amra, like, I think I had about 10,000 words of kind of like, maybe some notes, maybe some scenes. She was like, okay, like this isn't a book or at all how you would write a book, but here are the elements of it that like show that you can probably do this. And without her, I would just have been writing myself around in circles for so much longer. And I don't think ever have gotten the shape of a book out of... I would have written a lot of words and they would have cohered into nothing. So yeah, I think that's super important. Other people might not need it. Maybe they're just geniuses. I don't know. But I also, because of the self-doubt, I had like a stack of novels and memoirs next to me, and I'd be like, can you say like, I remember this? Or do you have to like be like, do you have to trick the reader into realizing that you're reminiscing about something? And so I would just like open them and be like, yeah, no, you can just
say I remember.
You can just say, I remember being 10. It's not all that lame and direct. But even things like that, I was like, I just felt like I needed the help and the structure to do it.
Yeah. And I think, this is such an important thing for people listening, because obviously you've done so much in this field and you're like facing these same challenges. But did you engage a mentor to do this, or these were people you'd worked with in the past and kind of are just general mentors? And is there anyone else who like played a big part in your writing career? Yeah.
I specifically engaged Amra and Ellena to work with me on the book, and I am lucky that I have had a lot of practice writing grants, so I could get grants to pay them to help me with the book. And I had never spoken to either of them before, but I like knew their work and felt that they would be able to help me with the things that I had questions about. And they were both so lovely. Like, I was terrified of them and they were really not terrifying people. And I felt like the value for what I paid them was amazing. Like, they put in so much care and time and thought that they didn't have to. And that's like a thing that you can organise through Writer's Essay, or there are lots of freelance writers who offer manuscript assessment and mentoring through drafting. Like, most writers, I think, make their money doing things like that rather than writing. So I would like super duper recommend it. And I think the way to find someone is just to find like someone's work that you think has parallels with yours, and then like try and find their email and email them and ask them. And more generally in my career, I guess I did have like a few editors who probably would have been mentors if I had thought about it at the time. Also, some of them were like really funny, like old school alcoholic journalists, and you're just like, is that an appropriate person to think of as a mentor? Like, they're pouring whiskey in their tea at 9:30 a.m.
But they are drinking tea.
They were drinking tea, importantly. And like they feel, some of that stuff feels like living through a sitcom, and you're like, I guess I learned a lot from that person. Some of it was what not to do. But yeah, like a couple of... The person I worked with in community radio, Annie Haswell, was amazing. She was a great mentor. She's still around in South Australia. I think she's still working in community radio, even like one day a week, mentoring uni students, which is awesome. Those people will learn so much from her. Yeah, and then, I don't know, I feel like everybody who all the writers I ever worked with at CityMag, like made me better at writing because I got to learn from what they were doing. You see like the way someone approaches a story and you're like, wow, I would never have thought of that. That's so cool. Yeah, and also, like I said before, my partner is so encouraging, and he also is now a musician but used to be a filmmaker and a photographer, and like watching his process for doing things, I've learned a lot. He's much more patient. Like he'll revisit something he's done a lot more times and like retain curiosity about it, whereas I get really sick of it. But I've seen like how much better he can make something in revisiting it, and that has helped me like develop patience, I think, for my own work.
It's an interesting one. And I wonder if it is the difference between, maybe something, if he's a photographer, like visual and writing, and maybe the journalism stuff is like just...
Yeah, I think it's kind of like a bad habit that I developed in journalism of just being like, well, it's finished.
The week's over. Yeah.
So the deadline's hit, send it to print. And I had to like retrain myself to be like, what if you could make it better?
Because are you working on a novel as well?
I have like a concept for a novel, which I have, I just feel like this is the thing we were talking about earlier. Maybe I don't have the creative energy while I'm working at Splinter to learn how to write fiction.
Well, I read, was it that you planned on starting it during COVID? Or was that just a vague, like, everyone's going to start a novel during COVID?
I mean, that's when I started the memoir.
Okay.
Is during COVID. And then, like, now I have a draft of that. I'm like, I guess I should write this novel that I have. Particularly if, like, no one's going to publish the memoir. You've got to, like, try again, right? Yeah. Write a different book and see if anyone wants to publish that. So, yeah. But I feel like, again, that'll be a whole other process because fiction is, like, the same but different, entirely different. Have you ever written any fiction?
No. Yeah. No, and it's just something that, I don't know, like you said, like, the idea of writing a book seems... like a weird thing,
Wild.
The idea of writing fiction. Like, I feel like I have a good imagination in short bursts, but anything sustained, I'm like, it feels like a weird thing. I'd love to, and I will try at some point, but maybe just not today anyway.
Later. Later, you've got time. I think I wouldn't have thought that it would be possible, except when I was writing the memoir, I realised how much easier it would be if I could just like bridge the plot with made up things. And I was like, you can't. In a memoir, you have to like, you can skip things, but you can't like make up new things to like fill out the arc of the character or whatever. You gotta kind of stay grounded in the subjective version of truth that you've chosen. I was like, I think maybe it would be really fun.
Do you think that's how autofiction became a thing?
100%.
It was people trying to write a memoir? Like,
yeah. I was like, maybe I should just make this autofiction. But I don't think I did. I hope I didn't. I tried to keep it in the realm of sort of accurate. I'm sure my family will, if it ever gets published, really disagree on what was true and what wasn't. I mean, I think this happens in every family. You'll be like, you remember when this thing happened? And everyone will be like, no, the sky wasn't blue, it was green.
But I think this is, again, like everyone's respective experience.
Totally,
like.
yeah. And the nice thing about that is you get to have your experience as well.
Yeah. And you sat down and wrote 60,000 words about it.
Yeah,
so that's
yeah, totally.
They can do that too if they want.
I guess. And I'd probably have weird feelings about it if they did, yeah.
Just a few more questions. What is the biggest challenge you face besides self-doubt in your let's go creative life more so than maybe the editorial stuff? And like, how do you interact with it on a daily basis? And is it tricking yourself into writing?
I think it's like maybe a combination of all the things we've sort of mentioned already, but like probably time and space, which I imagine like everybody says probably. I could invest a lot more in both the creative production and in the bits that I don't like but are necessary of like selling and promoting and whatever, if I had more time to dedicate to the creative work. Though I don't know if I would want to do that. I don't know. I feel so weird about
That is a tough one.
Yeah, but like that's how you get your work an audience in 2026. But yeah, I like that personally for me at the moment is a huge struggle. I just do not have the creative energy or just the physical energy to do
More naps.
like I need a I'm like turning 40 this year, and I feel like maybe I've just like hit a wall of how many hours I can work in a week, and I'm really a lot more attached to like lying on my couch reading, which I'm trying to be cool about, but I feel like the desire to be constantly productive is really beaten into my brain.
What kind of stuff do you read? Did you read to escape from what you're doing, or do you find, because I came to like writing and literature quite late, so I feel like I'm only reading things that I've kind of been told to read, because it's like this person's really good at this and you should learn this thing. So I'm like,
that doesn't sound that fun.
Some of it is, because
was that inside or outside?
On that later.
Yeah, okay. You don't want to check now?
No, it's okay.
Okay.
Where was I?
Mandatory reading.
Yeah, some things. It is like just objectively good writing, and it's like, but other things, I wouldn't mind just to kind of mindlessly get into something.
Yeah, I do a combo. So I like try and read a lot of Australian debuts, because I think they're the writers who will be in Splinter. And like that's the stuff I should be across for my job. I'm like a literary fiction reader from way back, which is so cliche for a journal editor. Like there's a big thing in literary journal world of pretending that genre writing doesn't exist, which is like, I think pretty silly. But my preference is probably literary fiction. But I also, my escapist reading is like crime, kind of like cozy crime. I love like a Agatha Christie, like contemporary style, but in that like murder mystery, locked room. I find the writing in those like often is a little bit off-putting, but the plots are great. And you have to just like accept that the style of the genre is different to a literary fiction style, and it's not that the writers aren't good, it's kind of just like a different expectation. The most I have been like proselytizing about this book a lot, but I recently read Capture by Amanda Lowry. I'm not sure how you say her last name is Lohrey. I don't know if she won the Miles Franklin previously or was shortlisted for a great book called The Labyrinth. But Capture is a fiction novel where a psychiatrist is interviewing people who believe they've been abducted by aliens, and it's really good. It's a really interesting examination of like the construction of reality and shared reality, and how like you either invest in someone else's reality or you don't. Great, super, and really like a fun read for a literary book as well. Yeah.
Great. Do you have any advice for this? I feel like this could be a bit of a rabbit hole. Actually, no, I'm just going to say, do you have any advice for the creative world? You can choose who you give it to, because I feel like there's so many. Like, we could go people who are submitting, or people who want to be editors, or writers in general. But I know I'm going to just give it
open.
You've got the soapbox is yours.
I think like hold the line is pretty good advice for anyone in any creative field. You just like have to keep trying, right? That's, I think.
You're actually not the first person to say that. And it's
I'm sure.
It's not what I think people getting into it would think.
No, I think you don't, it feels much more romantic than it, like when you start moving into a creative field, you have these visions that things are going to be like very related to a flow state, and like some of the creative production parts are, but that's like 5% of the whole picture, unfortunately. And you just like, you just have to keep trying. And I think in that, like, maybe find a reason to try that isn't like traditional success. I don't know, I haven't successfully done that for myself, but I feel like it would be a nice thing to do. And it's that comes from horse riding in my head. That's something my coach used to yell at me when I used to like train horses in show jumping. He'd just be like standing in the middle of the arena yelling, "Hold the line!" I was never really sure what it meant.
Right. Was it a very literal, like you're holding the line of,
I think it was
like
just,
the reins?
It was like, don't give up.
Right.
Just like, because you just have to
So it wasn't a very literal, direct,
I think
prompt.
It was like you're like cantering towards a jump that looks huge and terrifying. Just like keep going towards it. You'll probably go over it, I think was the idea.
I almost wish it was a very literal like instruction, and just like, internalized it as like, wow, this is great life advice.
Made it really metaphorical in my brain. Look, maybe it was. And for writers, I really do things like read a lot and write a lot, which is like what everybody says. But I just can't. You just internalize, you like absorb everything that you read. And when you're writing, when you reach for something, it's kind of there in a way that it wouldn't be if you hadn't read as widely, which makes me sound like a plagiarist, but I think everybody knows what I mean, right? There's like, you get the shape of things kind of sitting under your skin rather than you having to like navigate it consciously as much. And yeah, the more you can practice writing, that can't hurt, can it?
Yeah, I don't think anyone's ever wrote themselves into being a worse writer. Well, maybe in the short term, but
yes, definitely
again,
in the short term.
Yeah, hold the line.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
Do you have any specific projects that you're most proud of?
You know, it's funny. People ask about this in like job interviews and stuff. Not that I've done that many job interviews in my life, but the things that
because your CVs are so strong that you don't need to do it.
No, I think it's just because I am self-employed for a lot of time. But the things I always say are not relevant to writing, weirdly. But when I worked in Parliament House, we did a big reform of how disabled people interact with the justice system, which enabled like people who weren't allowed to give evidence because they were nonverbal to give evidence. And I'm like amazed that we were successful, and also like genuinely feel like that made a positive difference. and has nothing to do with writing.
I don't know though. I think it might, like your whole idea with Splinter of like championing diverse voices and that kind of thing. Like it's all...
Yeah, I guess it's like a value system. Yeah, and I do also think like I'm really happy that we got to do the First Nations issue, which was the 3rd issue of Splinter, which was edited by Janali Jones. And Janali was like so fun to work with. I thought she would say no when I asked if she wanted to take on the project. She's like an award-winning playwright and novelist and has a degree in editing, which I don't have. She like led the whole issue, and I was like, it's just feels nice to have built a platform to a point where then you can ask someone else to like use it however they want. And she made such an amazing issue, and I was like, oh, that's like, yeah, I feel like uncomplicated joy that we got to do that. Yeah.
Very cool. Last question is 5 years from now, what does your creative practice look like?
I've
More naps.
never thought 5 years ahead in my life, ever. Yeah, I guess I'll be a multi-award-winning author.
Congrats in advance.
Yeah, I don't think that will be true. I just hope that maybe the memoir is out with a small press, and maybe I will have drafted the novel by then. And hopefully I will still be part of the literary community. I would have been excommunicated. Beyond that, I have no idea, but probably something to think about.
It's worked out so far.
Yeah, it's been fine. I just kind of flop from one thing to the next, and it's been okay.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to plug, you want to shout out? Obviously, everyone go and buy Splinter's whole back catalogue. Please
buy Splinter. That would be great. It is available in bookstores and also directly from our website. Anything else? No, I mean, just like all the other local publishing endeavours. Buy some books from Pink Shorts Press. Sure, you've already told everybody to buy Olivia's book. Olivia de Zilva has a new poetry collection coming out though in September. Would highly recommend that. I'm just trying to think of like Splinter writers who have books coming out. Alex Sawyer's book is out this week. He's a great South Australian writer.
Rat Daniels.
Yeah, his debut.
Which is a great name.
Yes, totally. Were we talking about Jill Jones's book? Was that you and I emailing? No.
Maybe. No.
Jill Jones is a great South Australian poet. She had a collection.
And she's doing a lot of stuff speaking. Yeah, How to Emerge.
Yes.
It's very, very good.
Yeah. Everybody should buy that. That's probably enough for the moment. Yeah.
Where can people find you? Just at Splinter?
Yeah, so splinterjournal.com, and then if they want to see the bouncing head, it's farrinfoster.com, I'm pretty sure, for my website. They're probably the two main spots. Yeah.
Awesome. Farrin, thank you so much. It's been such a good chat.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks so much for listening to the Heaps Creative Podcast. This episode was recorded on Ngarrindjeri, Ramindjeri land on the Fleurieu Peninsula. And as always, I just want to say how much I appreciate all the love and support that you give the show. It means so much. Keep listening, keep sharing. And I do just want to address, there was a quote in the beginning from The Journalist and the Murderer by Janet Malcom, and the actual quote is, "Every journalist who is not too stupid or full of himself to notice what is going on knows that what he does is morally indefensible. He is a kind of confidence man, preying on people's vanity, ignorance or loneliness, gaining their trust and betraying them without remorse." Which is a great quote, but also something that, shout out to all the journalists out there doing good work and kind of taking that on. But thanks so much everyone, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.